here we go again. This is round two. What am I missing? Okay, nope. I gotta get my social media mic. I love this little thing. My daughter bought me this to use for TikTok and I never used it. And so I decided I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna use it now. Testing. All right, we're on episode 2. Here we go. Let's open the mic and share some stories. Welcome back to another heartfelt journey where we are allowing our memories to come into monologues and stories. I want to thank you for joining us tonight in the sharing of heartfelt stories. I want to welcome you to tonight's open mic. My name is Addie and I am a widow. I am on this journey of healing, of self-discovery, of learning, of grieving, of all of the things that we go through when we're on a grief journey. And I wanted to open my platform up to share stories and be a voice and give a voice to a grieving community. I think that most of us do a lot to be really strong, and especially in our economy, in our society, in our collective, in our Western culture, we get a couple of weeks off to grieve, and by a year you're expected to be over it and back on your grind, right? And the timeline for grief is none. And in going through another round of grief, because we grieve different things, we grieve losses, of any kind, right? Anything taken away from us that was previously ours can be undoubtedly considered a loss. Grieving a spouse is definitely a journey that I, 1, don't wish on anybody, but 2, only those of us that have been in that place really know and understand what the next one is going through. And I wanted to also give a voice to that too, because we are fine, but a lot of times we are not fine. And keeping the memory of our loved ones alive is really, really important. And I heard somewhere by someone on TikTok that we are the memory keepers, we're the holders. And if we are not continuing to speak their names and share their stories, who is? And what happens to their legacies if we don't do a small part to keep them alive? And so that's what this is. And so welcome back. This is our 2nd episode. I had a call to sit down and do this. I'm not sure how it's going to continue to unfold, but if you are here, welcome. Thank you for being here. These open mic nights are dedicated to the essence of our past, the stories that define us, and the memories that we cherish that carry us forward. So tonight's topic is on who you were before your spouse came into your life. And for those of you who are not widows, who are tuning in, but you are on a grief journey, but you know grief, but you know loss, but you are a surviving family member or friend of a lost loved one, think about that person. And if this is like a sibling, then obviously we know that you've known them since birth. So maybe you don't know who you were, especially if you're the younger sibling. However, for those of us that have suffered a loss or are grieving a loss, I want to question, and this is a really good one for your journal if you are a journaler, who was I before this person, this individual entered into my life? What did my life look like before the person? And for my widows, what did your life look like before your spouse? Before you met him, before you met her, before they came in and changed our worlds, and before we changed theirs, who were you? And so we'll jump right in, and today I'll be sharing my story. Okay, so we're looking at who was Addie before Shavonde came in. It's been 10 years. I met him in January of 2013. It's been 11 years. January of 2013. And prior to that, I was a mom, right? I had been living on my own. I was previously married before I met him, so that had did its thing. I went through a whole situation with that. I was standing for the marriage for several years by myself. He was non-existent, not interested, and I was a part of this beautiful ministry of other spouses who were also standing for the restoration of their marriages. And I had gotten really heavily into my word. I was going to church every Sunday. I was really praying for this miracle of this restored marriage. And after a few years, I got to a place where, like, let me just be completely transparent. I had started cutting up. I had met some people. I started having this idea of what was fun, right? I was meeting other men, and at that point, it started to maybe seem like it was becoming clear to me, like, what am I doing? And I've had my share. One thing about me is I'm always going to do my very best to be accountable to my own personal growth, my own spiritual growth. And I've always been like that. It's like I can always turn it around and look at me, because I can always see both sides of the story, right? And I'll tell it to myself like it is, the same way I will do my best to tell it to someone else like it is, right? So I know that there was a short while that I was cutting up, but I was feeling like I'm young, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm cute, like there's no reason like why I'm enduring this, why I'm going through this. It's not fair that he just gets to like live his life and do what he wants and not be around and not be responsible, yet I'm the one who's sitting here like begging to be loved, right? And so I had a really big battle. I was going back and forth a lot with that, because it was like, well, if I, do I stop standing for the marriage? And so I had to be really 100% sure that like I was hearing from God. And it took a couple of years of this back and forth, when finally one day on the floor, I'll never forget it, I had this moment and I was in prayer and I was crying out, and I was done. I was at my last straw. The God's not going to give you more than you can bear. I was right there. And I feel like that night on the floor, I was saved, and I very audibly heard out loud, "You may go." And that was it. Like, that was all I needed. At that point, I was free. I was free from it. I was not going to stand. I made a decision that I was not going to stand any longer. And at that point, we ended up proceeding to go through with the finalities of the divorce. And I almost want to say that no sooner, literally, than the divorce was finalized, like he was in the backyard getting remarried to his current person that he was dealing with at the time. So all of that was really indications to me that, like, you know what, like there's something better, like there's something else out there. So I had my fun. I was about 26 maybe when that happened. And so for the next couple of years, I was in the hoe phase. I was like, I don't care, like I'm going out, I'm on the weekends, after, school, after work, after all the things, like taking kids to my parents, and I'm going out. And I did. I was having a really good time. I was hanging out with my friends. I was hosting things at my house. I ended up meeting someone who I used to know that came back around, I guess, at that time, and we had like a really dope relationship for a while. It was all kind of virtual, and then somewhere along the way, like, he ghosted me, and that was kind of like the biggest turning point. It was that particular relationship, situationship, friendship, I really don't know what the fuck it was, but it was after that particular situation that I was like, you know what, no, I'm not getting involved with anybody else anymore that's this way or that way. And I really decided at that point, I want to put my focus completely into building my little empires and raising my children. So I was in that time where it's like, I'm not looking, right? I've got other things to juggle. I have responsibilities to take care of. I'm not in a position where I'm looking. If someone comes in, they come in. So that was me in a nutshell. I was teaching sensual dance classes out of my garage studio every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night. I had groups of women, classes of women that would come, and we were changing our lives through movement. And when I wasn't doing that, I was hosting girls' nights. I was having like evenings with my friends. I think that's one thing I miss. Like, you could always count on me to be having a Taco Tuesday at my house. Like, come through with the tequila. Like, we're making margaritas. We got different types of tacos popping off. I was exercising. I was hanging out with my kids, and I was just doing it. I had goals to maybe open like a pole dancing studio, or really deeply what I wanted to do at that time was like teach online. And this was way before 2020. And this is before the internet really got saturated with people teaching online classes and having all these online apps and things like that. I was at that point trying to figure out, how can I do this but virtually, right? And so that was me. I was living and existing and doing my thing. I had been through several not so great relationships, or they were great, but several relationships that ended up not so great. And that's pretty much what it was. So I'm curious to know your stories. If you are a widow, if you are in a grief journey or grieving the loss of a loved one, who were you? Do you remember who you were? What were you like? What did you like? So that's kind of going to be our topic for this week and our focus. So if you have a journal, if that's something that you've been doing on your healing journey, is keeping a journal or keeping logs and diaries of your feelings, it would be an interesting topic to explore, is who you were then, because later we will obviously get into who we are currently becoming now, what having a relationship with them and then losing a relationship with them has been like on our life, and on who we are as individuals. Thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna go ahead and close out this second episode, and I will see you guys next week for another Memory Monday, and we will have a new topic and we will be sharing a new story. If you're interested in following my grief journey and my story as I'm sharing it on TikTok, you can find the information for that in the description box below. If you know someone who's grieving or know anyone who can benefit by hearing these stories, I ask that you share this video, like this video, so that it can get picked up in the algorithm. And I will see you guys on the socials, and I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.